other thing I wanted to talk with you about today is the topic of sex education for elementary school-age children. I think back to when I was in school, we didn't touch that topic. I don't even remember talking about it in middle school.
Yeah.
But we're in a different world these days.
Yeah.
And you have expertise in this area. That's something you've studied as well. And so I just thought it would be a very interesting topic and timely for me. I'll admit I'm interested in this to know how to better deal with this with my own kids who are in 1st and 4th grade currently. So I'm not even sure where to start though. Maybe tell me what you know, how things stand today and where you as a mom would like to see things go.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see it go really far. No, the more I learn, the more I'm like, man, there's no end to what needs to be done,
and
really, in this regard.
This interest come about for you after you became a school nurse and learned some things through some of your training, or was this because of some things that your older daughter Essie was coming home and telling you was happening at school?
Well, I think so. Birth was always an interest of mine. When I was 10, I was there and saw my little sister be born.
Wow.
And my mom, who's 5'6", maybe on a good day, I don't know. I hope that's how tall she is. Yeah. But she's a short woman, gave birth to a 10.5-pound baby in front of my eyes with no interventions of any sort, no drugs, no tearing. And and I witnessed that. And in my mind, birth was really natural and normal. And so then when I had children and was running the birth circle, it became very clear how that's not the picture we are sold typically in our society. Birth has become very medicalized. And so I had started thinking about that many years ago. And then Essie, my elder daughter, is an inquisitive soul, let's just say.
Okay.
She has put me on the spot so many times about reproduction and bodies. And so with her, in order to be prepared for the questions, she would she one day across the breakfast table looks at me, makes that like laser beam eye contact and says, "Today's the day you're going to tell me how the sperm meets the egg." She was 4. She was 4. And I'd been like circumventing the actual conversation all the time. And so she wants information. And as soon as she gets the information, she moves on.
Okay.
But in order to parent her, this inquisitive, bold kid, I had to start reading about how do you talk to kids about these things. And then that sort of, through the reading online and articles, I was realizing, man, so similar to birth, we in this society aren't really taught as about sexuality and bodies and all that as normal and natural. It's sort of a taboo subject. So that got me thinking. And then I started in school nursing and realized that what was currently being done in our current district, it just didn't seem like enough to me. Teaching only female-bodied people about female bodies and only male-bodied people about male bodies, and that didn't seem right to me. And then I read a book that changed everything called Girls and Sex by Peggy Orenstein. Have you read that book?
I have not.
Oh man, go get it.
I think I will now.
Yeah, it's, I think it came out a couple of years ago, 2, maybe 3. And she talks a lot about how kids aren't really having sex younger necessarily, but the nature of sexuality and the sex that they are having is so heavily, if not totally, influenced by pornography that it's really changing what it means to be a sexual being in this day and age. Because essentially, so we're giving them no sex ed anymore. Sex ed's gone way backwards in the last couple of decades.
Wow, okay.
You thought we didn't have anything. Now there's like nothing.
Wow.
And Ohio is the single only state in the entire nation with no health education standards. So not only do you not have to teach sex ed if you don't want to, but you can teach not medically accurate information if you want to.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really backwards.
Wow.
I know.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's wild. So not only are we not giving our kids sex education, but we're handing them the world on their phones. And if they are curious, if you and I were curious about, I'll choose something random, oral sex, we would have learned about that from friends and, right now they just type that in. And so then what they see is pornography.
Yeah.
And this great article in the New York Times, this woman interviewed like 70,000 kids, and average initial exposure to pornography is at age 8, and an average pornography addiction is well established by age 11.
Oh my gosh.
In children who have smartphones. So it's, I mean, this is where they're getting their information. And so it is very much changing how they perceive themselves. And, you know, I mean, and this book was especially geared towards girls or female-bodied people, and about how, you know, pornography, there's not a lot of mutuality. There's not a lot of voice for women or any of that. So female-bodied people are, from the time they are young, growing up with this idea that there is subservience and it's about male pleasure and all of these really backwards ideas, which are turning into violence and, you know, all kinds of really, really, really hard things. And I read this book and was like, oh my God,
wow,
what are we gonna do? And then having little girls at home, that just hit so hard for me. I'm so very aware of how we went to the Apple store at Easton, Columbus, and we walked down just some outside row of stores, and they all had a little billboard thingy out on the sidewalk, which was some woman in underwear or something like that, and they all look like they're 14 or 15 years old, and just the images that my children are bombarded with constantly. And if I don't purposely and really intentionally tell them that their value comes from inside, they're not going to know that from just what they get in the world.
You're right. You are
and
so
right. So then I decided to start making some change after I read that book. And